Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday night. Look who I've got here home with me. Rachael and Virgil came to town for Grandma Jamma's memorial service on Friday, and they've been here all this beautiful weekend. And so I thought I'd ask them to join me for a story tonight. So first, whatever your libation is this evening, let's raise a glass and say cheers to first you're here,
then you're everywhere.
So, we're going to do a three-generation story. I'm going to get this where I can do this. That each of us was involved in. These two, of course, more than me, but sometimes you will find yourself... Okay, first of all, I have to back up. Before doing this, I just want to have another toast because the energy is so different tonight than it was. And here's to those who are rejoicing this weekend, and here's to those who are not. We're all still in this together. Peace. Me, I'm rejoicing. Anyway, so what I started to say is that sometimes you find yourself in a situation that you really have no control, and you find yourself in a place. I don't know if any of you have had this happen, but it happened to these guys, and it's happened to me, where they found themselves in a place that was a good place, a good place to be, but it was a transitional place. And within that transition, they experienced some things that were kind of uncomfortable and not welcoming and settling. And when you're in the middle of a transition, a big move from one place to another, and you're in something in between those big moves, you already are dealing with a whole bunch of things. And then if the place where you're staying adds to those things, well, it changes the story just a little bit. So I suppose I'll start with Rachael. Want to start and
Sure.
tell a little bit about your situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are going to tell you some stories tonight about the first house that we lived in when we moved to Nashville. We just stayed there for a few months. It was just an interim house. It was just this small little 2-bedroom house south of town, straight down Franklin Pike toward Brentwood, still in Nashville proper. But you go straight down from the center of the city of Nashville about 5-6 miles, and there that's where our little house was that we stayed. And it was exciting time, but it was also really insecure time, just because it was a brand new place. I didn't know anybody there. I had very few people there. Dominic had lots of friends and even relatives, people that he'd known his whole life there. And so I was still a little bit on the outside of the circle. And so we moved there the end of September and moved into this little house. It was all furnished and everything. We didn't need anything but our suitcases. And 3 days after we moved there, Dominic that was when he was on the Lazaretto tour. No, that was when he was on the very first tour, the Blunderbuss tour in 2012. And they left for tour 3 days after we moved there. And so it was Virgil and I in this little house. I didn't know anybody around. I didn't have anybody's phone numbers. And we were in this little house on this property. I think there was a bigger house on the property that was built in 1910. And then this little house, I'm not exactly sure when it was built. It was just a small little spot, and it had technically 3 bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms was set up like a den, and the other one was like this big living room and kitchen area. And then there was a parlor. You would walk like through the kitchen into the back bedroom. There was one bedroom right off the kitchen, and then there was a back bedroom through this small little hallway, and then off to the left when you were walking down to the back bedroom, there was like a sunroom with all glass windows, and it was like 2 steps down into this little parlor, and there was one of the items in there was a stuffed baboon. It would sit in there.
Pretty creepy.
And like there wasn't any lights to turn on.
Red. It was like red tinted glass.
The glass was red and blue and yellow, so like the sunlight even coming in there was a little creepy. And I would be walking past that room at nighttime, and I would see the baboon out of the corner of my eye, and every single time I would just like pee in my pants a little bit. It was just so terrifying.
I loved it.
And so you liked it. And so after a while, I decided that maybe to lighten it up a little bit, I put a pair of sunglasses on it and a birthday crown, and then eventually I put my ukulele in its hands.
And you put a shirt on it.
And I did. I put a little shirt over it at one point, and that didn't make it any better. It actually made it worse because I couldn't see its eyes, and it always just felt like it was looking right at me. But this house, even if all of the lights, it had old wiring, so all of the light bulbs and all of the fixtures were 40 watts or less. And it was, even with every single light on in the house, it was still super dark in there. It was just really dark. Every corner was dark. It's just like the light seemed so dim. Even when the brightest light in the front room was on, it was just dark. And there were like there was like sconces, like a lot of the lights were affixed to the walls and not the ceiling. So it was just like the way the light was in the house. It was just like, it was so dark in there. And I remember just always like turning the lights on full blast and being like, it is just dark in here. And I was pretty anxious too when we were living there, because like I had to like navigate the whole beginning of living somewhere, with Dominic being gone. Virgil was going to a brand new school. I had to figure all of that out. I had to get the lay of the land, and I didn't know anybody. Like, I didn't even have like the phone numbers of the people that Dominic knew. Like I had no resources and nobody to reach out to, and so I was like really like anxious and nervous a lot of the time, and especially when we were at home, we were in the house, I was just like really anxious and just felt like really this like really repressive anxiety all the time. And there would be times when we would go out and do things, and go out on adventures and explore, and that would be fun. But then as soon as we would get home, I would just feel really uneasy and anxious, and didn't know why. And like there was one time, and I could feel myself too, like getting heavier and heavier and more anxious as time went on. Dominic was gone for 3 whole weeks, and I just like felt more and more exhausted. I felt run down, energy drained and stuff. And there was even this one time, like it was probably like maybe a week or maybe even a few days before Pops got home, when I'd had it. Virgil was 5 years old, and he was just not cooperating. He wouldn't brush his teeth, or he wouldn't go to bed, or he wouldn't pick up his toys. Something, I don't remember what it was, but I just
brush
like
my teeth.
I think that's what it was. He wouldn't brush his teeth.
I still don't.
And that's true. And I remember just being exasperated and saying like, "Would you just brush your teeth?" and like scream at the top of my lungs. And when I did that, all of the lights in the room kind of went and like got dim. As my anger heightened, the lights got dim, and like it's already dark in there, but it was like almost like this like surge. It was like a surge. It was like an energy surge, and
brownout.
It was like a brownout. That's what it looked like. And then when I was screaming at Verge to brush his teeth, I wasn't noticing it, and then a minute later I noticed that it was darker, and it startled me, and so I stopped yelling and realized it, and the lights all came back on full blast. There was one night.
What's your take on that? Because you told us something about it.
Yeah, this kind of goes into my story. I think there's a good ghost, a good spirit and a bad spirit.
That's a story that was after we lived in the house for like 4 or 5 months. Virgil started experiencing.
But he
I
said
started
that
seeing
he
stuff.
thought maybe it was the good spirit that was saying, wake up, stop,
Stop,
settle down,
stop.
calm down.
Oh, that there was a positive energy and a negative energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the positive energy was dimming the light to try to make you notice.
You think so?
Like
It
protect
felt
you.
really ominous. Remember, we had stayed there for 1 week, and there was like an alarm
I
system
know.
in the house. There was
Yeah,
like
and then
the ADT
yeah.
system in the house, and I was putting Virgil to bed, and the next day was supposed to be his first day of school, of kindergarten, and at this new school, and it's midnight, and I had just been like putting things in place and stuff, and he was asleep. And I started to fall asleep, and the alarm went off, and the
It
alarm
sounded like
was
different. It was like an alarm, like a doo-doo, instead of like a.
it was
smoke
like
alarm.
it was a house alarm, like a burglar alarm.
Yeah.
And it was connected to the front door that was down the hall, through the kitchen, through the front room. The door was in the front room, and the alarm went off, and
No, it was a carbon dioxide.
well, it was the main alarm system. And what I thought is that I went there, and like the doors were all locked. There was nothing that could have tripped it. And what I thought, because like this alarm was also connected to the fire, the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors. And so I thought in my mommy brain that it was detecting carbon monoxide. And so I was really worried, and like, so what I did was like I went and checked like the appliances. It was there, like the water heater and everything was just in this little closet off the living room, and I looked, and the water heater there was no gas appliances. There was an electric stove. The water heater was electric. There was nothing that could have created carbon monoxide. But I was like, I don't know if there's something else going on here. So I just opened the doors and the windows, and after the windows and doors had been open for a few minutes, the alarm stopped. So I thought maybe that was it. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to go to sleep with all the doors and windows open. So I didn't know exactly what to do. And so I just kind of like thought, okay, I'll close the doors and windows and I'll go lay back down. And so I did that. And as soon as I started to fall asleep, the alarm went off again. And I was just really worried. So I called the fire department, and they came to our house in the middle of the night, and with their detectors and stuff, and there was nothing. There was no fire detector, and they just said there must be some loose wires in your alarm. Just call the company in the morning and have them come out here and fix it. And I was like, all right. I'm like, is it going to do that again? And it did. It did it again after they left.
Also,
and I just shut all the doors, so I couldn't hear it. But it was going off all night.
yeah. And also, I remember like a fireman. I had a irrational fear of storms when that happened.
Yep.
And it was coincidentally storming outside, and I had to
And
wait
it just started
outside.
raining. Yeah.
And it just started raining, and a fireman had to calm me down.
Yeah, because you were so nervous. It was just this crazy, and it was we'd been there for like 8 days or something, and it was just this insanity, and like I couldn't get a hold of Dominic, I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this myself.
And then didn't the sprinklers go off while you were standing
While
on the
we
lawn?
were waiting outside, we were waiting outside, the automatic sprinklers went off, and we got a little wet during that. It was just this like hilarious comedy of errors. I can laugh about it now, but looking back on it, it wasn't mysterious in the moment, but looking back on it after all the other stuff that happened, it kind of made sense that there was something else that was tripping the alarm. The one other thing that was palpable that happened, this was probably the most tangible thing that happened. The kitchen was pretty big, and it had this like peninsula that came off of the side of the wall, the kitchen wall where the sink was. And I was making dinner, and the peninsula on the other side was the living room, and then directly behind that area on the wall, directly behind the peninsula, was the stove. And so I was on the peninsula, like chopping something on the chopping board, and I had something in the pan, and so I turned around, and the stove was probably 4 steps. I turn around, walk 4 steps to the stove, and I stir the pot, saute it, move it around. And then I turned back around and walked 4 steps back to the cutting board where I was working, and the knife that I was using was gone. It was nowhere. It hadn't fallen on the ground. It wasn't off to the side. I was like, did I put it in the sink on accident? I'm like, did I have it in my hand? I looked for it for maybe 5 minutes, and then I was like standing at the stove, like finally like, what the heck? And I was just totally baffled. And then I turned back around to look around again, and it was exactly where I had left it 5 minutes earlier. It was in exactly the same spot, like it had not been touched where I left it. And at that point, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. And I think I remember calling T.I. and saying, Mom, I think this place is haunted. Will you, put up protection up for us? And told her that stuff. But I didn't know Virgil had things going on, and I didn't know that he had been experiencing things until after we moved out of the house.
Yeah, because I was scared. I was like, am I just going insane? I was like, will I get in trouble if I say it?
He started having night terrors, and I thought that it was just stress related to the transition of moving and
I love
everything being in
that's
upheaval.
not sad.
But he started having night terrors, and they're really scary. I don't know if any of you have experienced night terrors, but it's like he was wide awake. His eyes were wide open. He would be sleeping, and then I would hear him just start screaming. And his eyes would be open, but his pupils would be super dilated, and he would be just staring off into space and screaming at the top of his lungs. And I would just like grab him and hold him, and then he would just like stop screaming and go right back to sleep. I
don't know that.
And you wouldn't remember it the next day. And it was absolutely terrifying for me. And all of these things I was going through while Dominic was on the road. And
See, that's why I liked when Amma visited. That never happened.
Right. And what now you can tell about some things that were happening to you. Virgil stayed in the bedroom off the kitchen.
There was always a ghost. There was always something in the corner of my room. Every time I woke up almost every night to go to the bathroom.
And there was a bathroom in that bedroom too.
Yeah, but maybe just wake up because I had a night terror or something. Like a nightmare or
You just
something.
never slept all the way through
Just
the
never
night.
slept. Well, I did. I went back to sleep, but I always had something right there. And if I had to go to the bathroom, if I put my feet on the ground, I'd turn around and put my feet on the ground and look over, it's gone.
As soon as you were out of the bed.
Yeah, as soon as I was out of bed.
What did you see? What were some things that you saw?
Just a person, just an entity.
What did it look like?
Could you tell?
It looked
if it was-
red.
Was it like a light or was it like a shadow?
It was illuminating red.
It was a light.
Could you make out what was the shape it was in?
Just a normal man.
So it was in a
masculine form.
so it was physically looked like a human,
Yeah.
but it was like
No legs.
No legs. Okay, so like a glowing red, misty thing in the corner.
Yeah.
And this was
And
the
it
corner. If
had,
you were
like,
laying in the
dark-
bed, this was the corner off to the left.
If I was laying in bed, it was the corner off to the left with my dresser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for its facial features, it was darker red.
Okay. That's not the only thing you saw there.
Yeah, I also saw a blue ghost. Like a blue, I don't know. It was the same exact thing. It was like an opposite of the red one. It was the same exact copy, but a different color. And these were all faint. They were very, very, you could see directly through them.
You could barely see it.
Yeah.
There was one time when
if I was sick, I could see them very vividly.
There was one time when I was sleeping in the back room and you were sleeping in your room and you woke up screaming, "Mommy, Mommy!" And so I immediately, I was never completely asleep in that house, I don't think. And I just leapt up and ran in your room and you were really scared and you said, "There's a mad skeleton face on the wall." And there were some light shadows.
Oh, no, that was a light shadow.
It was a light shadow?
That was a shadow from the moon. It was very coincident.
You said, I remember pointing out the light shadows on the wall and saying, was it here like this? And you were like, no, it was coming out of the wall. But that could have been your imagination.
Yeah, it was wasn't it midnight?
Yeah, it was after midnight.
Yeah, so yeah, it was probably, I think before I called your name, I went to investigate it, and when I stood in front of it, there was a shadow of me.
At that night, I climbed in bed with you because you were nervous, you were scared, and so I climbed in bed with you to snuggle you to put you back to sleep. And I was just laying there, looking at the shadows on the wall while you were going to sleep. And there was a shadow on the wall by the closet, over on the right side of the bed.
Closet.
and it just looked like a tree shadow. And I remember just looking at it, and then all of a sudden it started moving up the wall, like toward where we were. And at that point, I like woke you. I like was like, "Come on, let's go in our room," and I just like got you up, and we went into my room. And we like left that room because it was. And then I realized that it was it was the height of something standing there up the wall in the shadow. It just started moving toward the wall, and then I realized that it wasn't just on the wall. Like there was, it was a little misty.
It was moving in the room.
It was moving in the room.
Yeah, a little dark shadow thing.
Yeah.
I don't like.
And then I just like woke you. I like picked you up and took you into my room.
Did, when he was in your room, because when we went and stayed there, he had a little bed at the foot of your bed. Remember you put like a little pallet at the foot of your bed for him?
He was really sick. He had a really high fever. And the floor was cold. It was always really cold. The floor was freezing.
Yeah,
and
the foundation. It was like
so,
hard.
well, there was a crawl space. The house was elevated. There's like a crawl space under the house.
Mm-hmm.
But so I made a little bed for you on the floor in front of the giant TV in that back room, and thinking it would cool you down, you know, instead of putting you in a hot bed. And I had like cloth on your forehead and stuff, and your fever just kept going up and up and up and up and up and up.
Did
And
you go
then
to the hospital?
I almost took you to the hospital because your fever was so high. But then I was like, there's something wrong here. You know, I just had this weird feeling like he shouldn't be on the floor. And then I like just picked you up and I put you in my bed, and you'd taken medicine before, but it wasn't working. And then after like 20 minutes, your fever was like 99. And I don't know if that was just your fever breaking, but I mean, you still were sick for a couple days after that, but like you being on the floor, it was just like, I can't explain it. It was just like, you know, like there was something holding on to you almost, is what it seemed like.
Did you feel like that?
No, I felt really cold.
Well, with the fever, but that's when you told me about the two ghosts that were like fighting.
Yeah. It's hard to remember that.
So when we were driving in the car, talking about this, you said you saw the red ghost,
The red ghost and the blue ghost.
and one was coming toward you and the other was
No.
like wrestling with them.
Yeah, like trying to keep him back. The blue one was trying to keep the red one back.
Where were they?
Closest to the doorway. They were like side by side in the doorway, and one was coming towards me and one was trying to keep it back.
When you were in the bed? Was it that time you had the fever?
Yeah, it was when I had a fever and I was alone. You were in the bathroom.
There was one time when you had a night terror sleeping in my bed, and you woke up and you were doing that thing where your eye pupils were dilated and you were screaming, and you were just screaming across the room. And then you like slowly turned toward me, and when you saw me, you just like your face just turned white, and it was like
You were
pure
red.
terror.
You were red. You looked like a devil. You looked like a demon.
And I didn't know that then, but you looked at me and you would just start screaming, and like I would like hide my face, and like I went into the bathroom in that room to hide, and when I was hiding, when you couldn't see me, you were just kind of like and then I would come out of the door, and you would look at me and start screaming again, and this was another time Dominic was gone.
And you called me that night.
Yes, and I called you. I think I called you
called
right
me
then.
during it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And Virgil then
You ended up looking away and giving me a hug.
I did. I came towards you, and I like buried your face in my shoulder, and I just spoke softly to you and rubbed your back.
And it worked.
And I put myself on from here, but I was still on the phone and talking you through this, and I put myself on your back on the other side and envisioned myself putting my arms around the both of you and just holding the both of you.
And I didn't sleep at all that night.
And you went to sleep. You held him, I think, all night. We
Yep.
stayed on the phone for
A while.
a long time.
That was very scary.
Yeah.
All these things happened with no one around, you know.
I was
That's
there
why I'm scared to move.
with
That's
you.
why I'm scared to move.
Oh, that won't happen. And where you moved. So what are you scared about moving? That there might be ghosts there?
Yeah.
well, don't worry, I'm gonna be coming down before you move in any place, and we'll take care of whatever's there. We'll make sure that it's safe.
There was that also one time in the back room when Dominic had come home from tour. He'd been home for a couple of days, and you were sleeping in the bed with us. And we were just about falling asleep. Dominic had turned off the light, and then we were falling asleep, and all of a sudden you like sat up and you said, "Who said that?" And I was like, "Whoa, what? Who said what?" I'm like, I didn't hear anything, and I like thought you were having another night terror, and I was like, "Virgil," I'm like, "Are you awake?" And you were like, "Yeah." Did you hear that? And I was like, "No, nobody's there." And you're looking at the doorway.
Yeah, they always stood in the doorway.
And I was like, "Nobody's there." And I'm like, "What did they say?" And you said, "They said I hate your mom." And I was like, "Oh, great." You know, like, and then you like went to sleep, and then I told Alma about that, and you were coming to visit for spring break.
Mm-hmm.
And so you came equipped when you came and visited for spring break.
I did. I had already been visiting in my, when Rachel would call about these things, I was on the job already, and I was, putting protection on. I mean, this is my baby and her baby, I mean, don't mess with these people. And I had already tried to keep a bubble around them, I know that sounds really trite, but I kept sending energy. And I've spoken to you about being able to spirit travel, and I had never been there. And I asked Rachel to send me some pictures of the place so that I could picture it, and then connect with them to be able to go there and be there with them at night, and just put myself as a barrier there between whatever was there. When I first, do you have more that you want to say, or do you want me to talk about my stuff yet?
Yeah, you can talk about your stuff. I don't.
Okay.
I only had 2 major incidents.
Yeah. Do you go there still sometimes? Do you still feel things?
Yeah,
there?
I still go there, and no, I don't.
Do you go in that house?
I go in the house. Yeah, I try to make the ghost come back out.
That's silly.
Yeah, I know, that's the point. I'm trying to be stupid.
Well, it's not stupid if you're prepared, because that's what I do. I ask them to come out and try to figure out what's going on. So when we got there, first of all, stepping out of the car, you could feel there's something connected to the ground. There's something in the ground, and I did not know that it was the site of a battle when I got there. Did you know at the time?
I didn't know at the
Civil
time.
War.
I didn't find out until years after we moved out.
Yeah, it was part of the battle in Nashville in the Civil War. But I just felt that, and I think I was even feeling something before that. But there was just something, there was just energy that was stuck there. And then walking into that little house, it was like, it was like it was built to keep the energy in. It was, I know it wasn't, didn't happen on purpose, but the way it was built was such that things were like stuck there, that there was energy stuck there, and the corners were all like rough. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like, you know what, I cleaned my room today and dusted my dresser for the first time in quite a while. And when you first just run the dust rag over the top, the corners still have the dust in it. Well, it felt like that there was still dust in the corners, but it wasn't dust, it was energy. So energy was constantly moving there with the different people who lived there and passed through there. But there was stuff getting stuck in the corners. And the sunroom, when we first walked in the sunroom, that felt okay. It was like stepping off the ground up a couple of steps into it.
It was down.
It was down.
Down from outside?
No, from the inside of the house. You took 2 steps down.
But when you come in from the outside, that little porch to come in.
Oh, the stoop
That
outside.
had the plants, yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
there
2
was like
steps.
3 steps up.
Okay, so as
Yeah.
I stepped up off the earth, it felt better until I walked in and then felt this energy. And it was like things were just going around. And my take on it was that I had already been there. You know, I had gone there with my spirit self, and it recognized me when I got there. And it also knew why I was there, because I was not there to help them at all. I was there to just protect my family. And I wasn't going to spend any time helping energy move on, helping people, you know, hear their story and try to help them this time. It was spring break, and I was not there. I was only there as a mama lion and an ama lion, and I wasn't having it. So when we moved our stuff in, first of all, I had used, you know, my hoodoo stuff and protected myself going there, and I had brought all of my what do you call it, my heat, you know, like I was packing heat, and it wasn't a gun.
Your survival kit.
My survival kit, my spiritual survival kit. And we stayed in the bedroom where Virgil usually slept. And when I walked in there, first thing I did, I put my suitcase on the bed, and just touching the bed, it was the bed in that room. Something was attached to the bed in that room. And I asked Rachel, and it was an antique bed. It was a
Everything
really,
in that house was an antique.
yeah, it was all collector antique stuff.
Really
The owner was a
interesting
really
old stuff.
The owner was really good with antique. He loved
Yeah,
antique stuff.
collected a lot of antiques. It was furnished with mostly like interesting
Really
antiques.
odd, interesting objects. Yeah.
Obviously there was a stuffed baboon in there.
Yeah.
True that.
It wasn't stuffed. It was like hard.
Taxidermy.
It was taxidermy.
Taxidermy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was stuffed sawdust
Yeah.
stuffed. But the bed, it belonged to somebody else. And the first thing I touched it, the energy that I got was, this is my bed. This is my bed. And I'm like, okay, the bed. Maybe it's the bed. And then when I, you know, got out what I needed and put my suitcase over on the little stand, Rachael always makes it really comfortable when you go visit. And then I noticed that there were other things that in the corner that Virgil talked about, that was one of the corners that the living people lived within the edge spaces, but the dead lived in the corners outside of where this sweep of energy. And so I knew that what I was going to first need to do is talk to this woman whose bed it was. And I think it wasn't the same mattress, it was the bed frame. But I'm pretty sure she was an old woman and a grandmother and had died in the bed. And I think she was confused with it being there, and she didn't know where it was. She was still kind of stuck to it. And I'm not sure she knew where she was or what was going on. She just seemed confused and very agitated. And she would wake Virgil up and disturb his sleep. And I'm thinking that when he was sleeping in that bed and being woken and having night terrors, that it was her messing with him. And so before I even did anything else, I was in that room by myself, and I spoke to her. And I said, here's the deal. I am the grandmother, and I'm here right now, and you need to leave. You don't need this bed anymore. This bed is for my grandson. You need to leave this place and never bother him again. And at first, it was like, gone. And I knew it wasn't just gone. I knew it's never that easy. It's just like, you know, well, walk away kind of thing. So what I did.
Like he was trying to trick you into thinking he gave up.
It just got out of,
off.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
got
like-
out. Didn't want to engage. And this was before I brought anything out. And so I just left the room and went out in the other spaces. And most of it that was there, I saw that woman there. There was what you talk about your red and blue ghost. What I think you were doing is I think that Virgil was perceiving energy in colors. I think you said that too.
Yeah.
That something that was calming appeared blue, and something that was agitating appeared red. And this, I've heard this before from other people, that there's ghosts with red eyes are more threatening. Then you see a blue mist can be frightening, but it's not threatening. So I think the colors have to do with the energy of the spirit that is there. I did not know about the red and the blue ghost at this time, but I did sense a very agitating, aggressive energy that did not like Rachael, and that did not like, I don't know know why, but just did not.
I mean, it was a war ground, so I mean, there's a lot of people that just hated for no reason.
Yeah.
There was something attached to me, though. There was something that was bringing me down and and
like
taking my
that
energy.
time when we actually moved into our actual house that we live in right now. When we visited that area again to see the house owner. And when you came back, you threw up like this. black vomit.
I went inside our house and I got super dizzy and super nauseous. And we were just over there for a short time.
Alma put like a bubble on her house.
Yeah,
and the ghost was trying to get out.
When we moved into our new house, Alma blessed our house, and we had spent some time back over in that area. And I was feeling like the way that I did when we lived there, just kind of heavy and mad, you know, like strangely agitated. And when we got home, I took one step in the door and felt so dizzy, like crazy spins, and put Virgil to bed really quickly and felt really nauseous the whole time. And as soon as he was tucked in, I just ran outside because I was going to throw up, and also because for some reason I just didn't want to be in there. And I ran outside into the yard and I like vomited, and it was like dark brown, and I hadn't eaten anything over there. I'd had like a sparkling water over there, and I like vomited this dark brown stuff, and then immediately felt better.
So let's think about this for a minute, okay? So you're in your house and you feel like you're going to throw up. Where do you usually go?
To the bathroom.
To the bathroom.
No, I ran outside.
Yes, because in your house that was protected, you also had Grandma Herbert.
Yeah, the previous owner of the woman that lived there raised her family there.
Who loves my family there.
Yeah,
And she has been a huge support to Rachael many times. And I think she pushed her out, and you had to expel it out.
And that's really what it was so bizarre. That's really what it felt like too. It was just like, and it was a little scary too, because I didn't know what was. I thought I was like had an ulcer or something. I thought I was like experiencing.
Your stomach was bleeding. Or
yeah,
something.
I thought like I was experiencing like some kind of serious medical. It was dark outside, but I thought it was like some kind of serious medical condition that was happening. And then it wasn't until later that I remembered, when you were blessing the house, the prayer that you were saying was, "Only love and light can live here.
Darkness may not enter this place.
Darkness may not enter this space. Only love and light can live here." And that dawned on me later, and then I was like, "Oh my God!"
Plus, I put cinnamon sticks over the door jambs, and when something that is evil passes over that sealed door with the cinnamon stick above it, and the seals around the place, it can't be in there. It can't pass through. So you were carrying it back with you.
Yeah. And then every time we went back over there from then on, I would put a bubble around myself and, like, you know,
Really?
I would, and you
do
too.
that every single time?
No, for a while I did. I don't have to do it anymore when we go back to that area. But it wasn't
That's
until
why I feel more.
like a few years ago that I heard from people that own property in that area that is where the Battle of Nashville was fought. And the Battle of Nashville, if you guys know about your Civil War history, is that it was one of the final like deciding battles of the Civil War. It was a 3-week-long siege that was happening on the high hills south of Nashville in the final days of the Civil War. And on this property that this little house was on was the site of some of the bloodiest battles. And right in this little area that was like our yard and our neighbor's yard, there had been like, 20 deaths. Because I think how they figure that is that they know the area where the battles were fought, and then the stories of how many dead there were that they had to then collect, and that there were probably a couple of dozen soldiers that lost their lives right in this property. And that had to have been where some of that dark, like earth energy was coming from, because didn't seem human, in the bigger part of the house. It was something shapeless and huge and heavy and thick. And it was just some kind of really dark earth energy. And it had to have been from that, that happening there, because that's a significant happening, and it would definitely leave a significant energetic imprint too on the land. But since then, I know other people in that area have similar stories, or feel the heaviness, or even seen. A friend of mine who lives in the property right next to this little house said she actually saw like a apparition on the lawn at night, like a white apparition tall as a man, just walking down the hill in front of their house. And when she was sitting on the front porch, and she knows the history of it, and she's not freaked out by that stuff, and so she was like, I'm sure that's what it was, and just like that whole area is just very heavy. Right. And there's still stuff there, but every time I go there, I'm just kind of it dissipates, it comes and goes. I feel like for some reason us being there drew it in a little bit, even. I don't know.
Well, I think that I'll bet that other people who've stayed there have just felt that anxiety, but not everybody attributes that to something spirit happening. But if you're raised in a culture that recognizes that, then you're going to recognize it. But I'll bet other people have had that happen. When I was there, was I only there the one time?
You're there a couple times.
Yeah, because the first time, I knew I wasn't going to be able to really get rid of everything. There was something huge outside that was like coming in. You're too tired.
Oh, really tired.
But
jumping all day.
I was able to sweep out a lot of the negativity that was there, and to put up some barriers for my family that were there, that lived there. After the second time we came, because that's when I did the really big.
When you brought all of the hyssop and the
I brought everything,
salts and
well, after I pushed I pushed it away, but it
Wall of
wasn't
fiery
going
protection.
forever. Yeah, and so I set all this up the second time I was there, and did salt hyssop. After I cleansed it and pushed the things out, I did the salt hyssop seal around it, and I did it around the inside, but I also did around the outside, and did some other protections just around, because I felt like there was something coming in from the land, and I don't think I was not able to keep it out completely, like forever, but I think I was able to make it a little bit safer for these guys. And did things settle down?
No.
They kept going?
Yeah, they were worse.
Well, no, you think they were worse?
They were worse for me, at least.
The first time or the second time?
The second time. they were pissed at me because I think that they were blaming all of this on me.
To get me in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they saw I had a big connection towards you when you came,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really happy when you were with me.
Yeah.
They're like, oh well, we're gonna target this kid.
You really felt targeted?
I really did feel targeted. It happened more often. Like usually it happened every week, and then after that it happened every night.
When
And then
you
it
saw
even
them
happened
every
in
night?
yeah, and then it even happened like at dusk, like before I even was tired. Like at dinner.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But after that, we only lived there for like another 6 weeks. Because we moved right after that.
And then we came back for the move, and before they even moved in, cleanse the other one. Yeah, there wasn't going to be much I could do at that place, but you were protected, and I gave you. I remember I gave you the amulets.
Yeah.
I gave you medals.
Yep. You got
I blessed
Saint Michael.
I blessed Saint Michael medals
Oh,
and gave
yeah.
him Saint Michael medals.
I want to get a necklace. Of those.
And so he was, it was, you know, it probably was, could have been still there and still able to see it, but you were not in any danger.
Yeah.
But it's scary to see that stuff, and when you don't know, when you're 5 and you don't know what it is, it'd be like having, you know, like having a mountain lion visit your room at night, even though it's not going to eat you, it's still there in the corner, you know. So yeah, that's scary. So when you go back there these days, do you ever see anything or feel anything there?
I feel like, well, I sometimes when I'm there at like a sleepover at night, like around 8.
At the other house, not the.
Yeah, at the other house, the like one that's like 5 feet away. I go into that house. Usually, like someone staying there, like one of the owner's friends. But the owner has a son. I'm friends with him, and when I have sleepovers with him, we sometimes go into the house for fun. And at night, I feel the same, like shivers.
Do you think
I
it
don't feel-
recognizes you still?
I don't know, cause it never comes out. I try to act. It never. If it knew me, it would come out. Cause it did almost when I lived there. It came out almost anytime it could.
Is the bed still in the room? Is it the same bed frame?
Same exact thing.
Did you ever cleanse the frame?
Yeah, the bed, the woman was gone.
Okay.
That was easy. When it's a ghost of a dead person, that's pretty easy to take care of because you just explain things to them. And it wasn't in her house; it was just the bed frame. And so I just explained that. I said, "Why are you staying in your deathbed? I mean, go to your next thing or go back to your house."
Go haunt somebody else.
Yeah, what are you attached to this bed? And I just said, I know you were here. I know you died in this bed, but it's no longer your bed. And now it belongs to someone else who is using it for good things. So go away. And I think she did. But that energy, that red and that blue energy that was there was something that was not, it would take more of a Piety Hill kind of thing to deal with that.
Yeah, that was a pretty huge, humongous earth energy connected to the land and the massive trauma that happened there.
Yeah,
I do try to go back there and make it come out. I want to see it again so I get a vivid image in my brain.
You probably wouldn't see it like that again.
I would.
You think so?
Yeah, my perspective wouldn't change that easily.
Well, spend the night in there.
I'm not gonna do that.
Or not.
No,
Or
right?
not. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
There's a mountain lion in the corner, dude. Don't go spend the night.
Yeah, I'm not, I go in there at late times, like bedtime for me, like 9 o'clock, and I try to see it. Nothing.
I don't think I've been in there maybe only one
It
other
hates
time.
me now. It just wants to stay away from me now. I think it just like, it's like I'm done with
Because
you.
Amma was like, stay away.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just like I'm done with you. I traumatized you already.
I'm through with you. I'm on to the next ones.
He told me recently that, like he never really slept through the night. Even when we moved into the new house, he would always want to sleep in my bed. And that
I remember that.
And that he said that staying in that house before we moved into our Primrose house, like really messed with him and really kind of like ruined his ability to sleep peacefully.
Yeah, I always wake up worried. Wake up, have to go to the bathroom, and then I watch YouTube until I go to bed.
Even now?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so after we get off of here,
That's why I like the weekends, because
you don't have to get up.
I don't have to get up, and I can stay up really late, so I can just crash.
And you won't wake up in the middle of the
And I
night.
won't have to wake up in the middle of the night.
Oh.
You just go to bed in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
There are other ways to.
And I do
do
take
that.
Benadryl when I'm not tired, and it doesn't help.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. But there's sleep meditations that you can do that changes your brain waves and will help you sleep. We could all talk about that stuff. But
Me and my therapist are trying to find some breathing exercises that'll calm me down and make me go to bed.
I have the same issue being woken up at night. A lot of things come through sometimes, and so I found some rituals at night before going to bed that help me close off my brain and close off my space from anything flying through. The thing is, Virg, is that once you have experienced other dimensional things, you always will pick it up when they're around, right? You can tell when you go in someplace.
Yeah, like we just went to a funeral, and I couldn't pick up that energy.
Right. He was talking
I hated it.
about
I didn't like it.
the energy.
It was so many feelings. I was very overwhelmed. Like I cried not because of the funeral, but because I was really overwhelmed. I usually don't cry at funerals.
He told me he's a nihilist on the drive home, but he was picking up the energy at the funeral home, the grief of all the many people who passed through there and exercised their grief there. And so what childhood hauntings are terrifying and can mess with you for a long time, but when you learn how to, as you grow and you learn how to approach and enhance that, when he talked to me about that energy, I just had him come by me and I put my arm around him and talk to you about just, it's the energy is here, just kind of push away. And I showed him what I always wear to funerals, and I'm gonna have to get you a set of things to wear. I'm gonna have to put him, maybe I'll make Virgil his own little private heat that he can take with him and have.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Teach him the family business.
Teach him the family business. Yeah. It's when things that we don't understand that are in our environment that we can't control, that you can't move away from, that you can't say go away. It can be very disconcerting. And whatever was there that did not like you, that red energy, I am so thankful to having put that protection around your house, and thankful to Grandma Herbert. I had not heard that story before,
Oh, really?
ever. And I'm very grateful for that, because vomiting is a very typical way to expel a spirit. I've had someone tell me about one time when it was like had felt it enter them, in the bed, and feel someone on top, and felt like it was in them, and got up and stood up and took a few steps and just felt like they had to retch and went, "Ugh." And he said that like this ball of clear liquid came out and just hung there, and he swatted at it, and it dissipated. So
That's so weird. I
Yeah.
don't like that.
yeah, that's kind of scary. But
I would pass out.
I would faint.
he was kind of freaked out. He came over here for a full a kind of, not an exorcism, but Yeah, I suppose you would have to call it that, but he came
cleansing.
over to make sure everything was out, and, because when something gets inside you, that's not okay, not okay. So, anyway, I love having these guys here, even if we are talking about spooky things.
Even tomorrow.
Yeah, leaving tomorrow, but we'll see you again soon. And, if you want to see your family, you got to do what we do, and you got to keep yourself safe. You got to wear your mask all the time. You have to isolate as much as possible. And then you just have to isolate. You just have to not be in contact with other people.
Order your groceries.
Yeah, so that you can get in the car and drive and be with your Amma and your Rachael and Virgil. And it's worth just hanging out and not doing anything for a while to be able to see each other. So be safe, be kind to each other. People are still freaking out, even though the energy in the universe, not in the universe, but the energy in the air around us right now has shifted considerably. There's a lot of anxiety still out there, so face it with kindness and with love, because if you face it with anger and anxiety, it just makes more. So, you guys have anything, parting words to say?
No, I don't.
So let me just thank, in case anybody doesn't know who these people are, right next to me is Virgil Ryman Davis, my grandson, and his mama, Rachael Davis. And they're visiting me from Nashville. So take care, have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Can you reach that, do you think, without?
I can do it.
Bye.